What if everything you know about the 19th century is wrong, not slightly wrong, not missing a few details, fundamentally, deliberately, surgically wrong? Municipal workers in a European city begin a routine road repair. They pull up the asphalt layer and freeze. Beneath their feet, a perfect iron lattice, wrought iron, geometric, precise, dated by its markings to 1899, not rusted through, not collapsed, functional. Someone paved over a perfectly working road. Ask yourself one question right now. Why would anyone bury something that works? We're told the 19th century was an era of horse carts, candlelight, and men in top hats who barely understood basic engineering. We're told our ancestors were resourceful but primitive, doing their best with stone, wood, and muscle. But then explain this. Iron costs, conservatively, 40 times more than stone per kilometer of road surface. 40 times. That's not a rounding error. That's a civilization making a deliberate, expensive, industrial choice. Someone ordered this metal, someone manufactured it, someone installed it across entire city streets, not experimental patches, full streets, hundreds of meters long, and then someone buried it. It's like finding a Formula One engine inside a wooden ox cart. The object exists, the technology exists, but the factory that built it, nowhere in the history books. Either our ancestors possessed industrial capabilities we've never been told about, or this metal came from somewhere else entirely. There is no third option, and here is what makes your skin go cold. There are no documents, no procurement orders, no engineering blueprints, no newspaper articles celebrating these streets, no memoirs from the workers who installed them, no records of who decided to bury them, zero, nothing, silence. Modern city councils document every pothole repair with 17 forms in triplicate. But an operation covering entire city blocks in precision-forged iron. Not a single page survives. That is not an accident. Accidents don't happen this completely. This is not a local anomaly. This is not one eccentric city engineer with a fondness for expensive materials. Similar iron surfaces have been found beneath streets across Europe and beyond. The same construction, the same burial, the same silence in the archives. We are not looking at a curiosity, we are looking at a pattern. And patterns, unlike accidents, have authors. Remember that word? Authors, because when we follow the evidence to where it actually leads, you will understand exactly who benefits from you never asking these questions. But this is just the surface. Literally, what lies beneath goes far deeper than iron. Shift your gaze from that single buried street to the map of Europe. What do you see? The same discovery, repeated everywhere, not one city, not one eccentric mayor with an iron obsession. London, Paris, St. Petersburg, Brussels, Chicago, across 5 countries, across 2 continents, workers pulling up 20th century asphalt find the same thing underneath. Precision iron lattice, same construction logic, same deliberate burial. This is not a local story. This is a coordinated pattern. Now let's turn on the calculator and just count. 1 kilometer of iron road surface requires approximately 800 tons of forged metal. That's not a rough estimate. Why, that's basic material science. 800 tons for 1 kilometer. The most interesting part is just beginning. Write in the comments what city you're from, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. The tension is rising. Who's watching us from where? Drop a like and subscribe to the channel. There's more to come. Mark yourselves in the comments. Which country are you from? Hit that like button and subscribe. The plot thickens. Let's check our geography. Right where you are right now. Smash that thumbs up and subscribe. We're just warming up. Tell us, where are you watching from? Support the video with a like and hit that subscribe button. The climax is near. Share what corner of the world you're in right now. Drop a like and make sure to subscribe. Things are developing rapidly. Write your city in the chat, slam that like, and hit subscribe so you don't get lost. All the juiciest stuff is ahead. Let's get acquainted. Who's from where? Hit like and subscribe. Right now the intrigue is building. Right where you're watching this episode from, and reward us with a like and subscription. Emotions are off the charts. Quickly write what city you're from. Drop a fat like and subscribe to the channel. Now consider, Historians document iron-paved streets in at least 40 major European cities during the 1880s to 1900s. Conservative estimate, 5 kilometers of iron surface per city. That's 200 kilometers total. Multiply by 800 tons. 160,000 tons of precision-forged iron. That is more metal than the entire Eiffel Tower, 35 times over. Produced, transported, installed, and then either melted back down or buried, with zero paperwork. Do you seriously believe that happened by accident? We're told 19th century industry was developing, steam-powered, coal-fed, struggling. Historians show us photographs of soot-covered factories with hand-operated bellows and men in leather aprons. Charming, romantic, completely incompatible with producing 160,000 tons of precision lattice work on a continental scale. It's like being told a village blacksmith forged the entire London Underground with a hammer on Tuesdays. Either an industrial infrastructure existed in the 19th century that our history books have completely erased, or this metal was not produced by the civilization we're told inhabited that era. There is no third option. And here is where it gets worse. Much worse. We know 2 things happened to these iron streets. Some were reportedly melted down for scrap, others were simply buried under asphalt. Both operations, on a continental scale, required enormous logistics, procurement, labor, transport, coordination across governments and municipalities. We have records of none of it. No melting orders, no scrap metal receipts, no city council minutes approving burial operations, no contractor invoices. The operation was continental. The paperwork is non-existent. This is not bureaucratic failure. This is deliberate erasure. Remember this number, 160,000 tons. Hold it. We will return to it when the full picture assembles, and what it reveals will reframe everything you thought you knew about who built our world. Because the iron streets are just the entry point. What we find when we look at the documents, or rather the void where documents should be, that is where the real investigation begins. Let's go directly to the archives right now, together. Pull up any major city archive from the 1880s, London's Metropolitan Board of Works, Paris's prefecture records, St. Petersburg's municipal ledgers. These institutions documented everything. Gas lamp replacement schedules, bridge bolt inspections, the number of horses permitted per street per hour, everything except this. Search for iron road surface, search for metal paving. Search for procurement orders, installation contracts, engineering specifications. Search for the names of the companies that supposedly forged 160,000 tons of precision lattice work. You will find nothing. Silence so complete it has a texture. Now ask yourself, is that normal? We're told 19th century bureaucracy was meticulous, and it was. We have proof. London's 1875 Public Health Act generated 4,000 pages of sanitation records. Paris documented every single tree planted along the Champs-Élysées between 1858 and 1870. 1,272 trees, each with its own ledger entry. The Russian Imperial Administration recorded the weight of every shipment entering St. Petersburg's ports from 1862 onward. Every tree, every shipment, every bolt, but not one invoice for iron streets covering entire city districts. It's like finding a modern highway in a national park with zero construction permits, zero environmental assessments, zero contractor records, and being told by the park rangers that they simply don't know how it got there. Either every archive in 5 countries simultaneously lost the same category of documents through some extraordinary coincidence, or those documents were removed, deliberately, systematically, by someone with access to archives across multiple nations simultaneously. Who has that kind of reach? We're told to trust the official record. Fine. Let's trust it completely. The official record shows us gas lamp maintenance logs, horse tram schedules, and sewer pipe diameters. The official record is extraordinarily thorough, and the official record contains no iron streets. This means only one thing. The iron streets were never meant to appear in the official record. They were built outside the documented system, or the documentation was erased after the fact with the same precision used to forge the metal itself. The absence of evidence at this scale and across this geography is itself the most powerful evidence we have. We see meticulous records of everything trivial. We see absolute silence on something that required continental industrial coordination. We see a gap so perfectly shaped that it could only have been cut deliberately. And here we approach the most unsettling question of this entire investigation, not where the documents went, but what the metal itself was actually doing in those streets. Because iron is a strange choice for a road, unless a road isn't what it was. Look at a Roman road, not a photograph. Find one in person if you can, or pull up satellite imagery of the Via Appia outside Rome right now. It was built in 312 BC. It is still there, still walkable, still structurally sound after 2,336 years. Now look at your nearest city street. When was it last repaved? 3 years ago? 5? And already the cracks are spreading, the patches are showing, the asphalt is sinking at the edges like a tired face. Who exactly is the advanced civilization here? Let's count what it actually took to build a Roman road. First, workers excavated a trench 1 meter deep, the full width of the road. Then came the statumen, a layer of large flat stones, each hand-fitted. Above that, the rudis, rubble and lime concrete 25 centimeters thick. Then the nucleus, finer concrete and gravel, another 30 centimeters. Finally, the surface stones, polygonal basalt blocks, fitted with millimeter precision, slightly crowned at the center for drainage. 7 layers, each engineered, each purposeful. Modern asphalt, 2 layers, sometimes 1. Poured hot, rolled flat, forgotten until it fails. We're told civilization advances. We're told each generation builds on the knowledge of the last. We're told we are the pinnacle of human engineering achievement. Then explain why a road built with hand tools in 312 BC outlasts our machine-manufactured surfaces by a factor of 400 times more durable. That's not an improvement gap. That's a different species of engineering entirely. It's like comparing a sand castle to a nuclear bunker and calling them both quote, _3___, and here is where the iron streets enter this calculation with full force. Because Roman roads, extraordinary as they are, represent one level of construction mastery. Iron surface streets represent something beyond even that, a civilization that had already surpassed Rome's legendary engineering, then chose to upgrade further to metal. Either the 19th century possessed industrial and material science capabilities that make our current infrastructure look like amateur work, or the iron streets were not built by the civilization history assigns to that era. There is no third option. We are not talking about a better road. We are talking about evidence of a completely different relationship between humanity and technology, one that was functioning, then vanished, then was paved over. The Romans at least left us their roads to walk on. Whoever built the iron streets left us only questions. But the scariest question isn't about the roads themselves. It's about what we find when we look at the metal more closely. Its properties, its composition, its impossible resistance to time. Let's return to the iron itself, because the construction methods are shocking, but the material properties are something else entirely. Take the iron lattice structures recovered from beneath European streets, dated to 1899. Look at them closely in the photographs that do exist. What do you see? No rust. Not minimal rust. No rust. These structures spent over a century buried under asphalt, surrounded by moisture, soil acids, seasonal freeze-thaw cycles, and the constant pressure of traffic above. Any modern iron component placed in identical conditions would be unrecognizable within 20 years. A modern cast iron pipe buried in urban soil typically shows significant corrosion within 15 years. Engineers budget for it, they plan replacement cycles around it, yet these lattices emerge looking like they were installed last decade. How is this possible? We're told 19th century metallurgy was crude, carbon content poorly controlled, impurities common, quality inconsistent. We're shown pictures of village forges and sweating blacksmiths, charming, except that narrative produces metal that rusts on schedule. It does not produce metal that laughs at a century of burial. Now consider the Iron Pillar of Delhi, standing since approximately 415 AD. That's 1,600 years. Outdoor exposure, Indian monsoons, summer heat reaching 45 degrees Celsius, and not one spot of active corrosion across its entire 7-meter surface. Metallurgists from the Indian Institute of Technology analyzed it in 2002. Their conclusion was extraordinary. The pillar contains a specific phosphorus-rich iron composition that generates a self-protective layer, essentially a metal that actively resists corrosion by reacting with its own surface, a metal that protects itself. In 415 AD, our best marine-grade stainless steel, developed with 20th century industrial chemistry, still requires maintenance coatings on ocean vessels every 3 to 5 years. We sandblast warships, we repaint bridges, we replace underground pipes on 25-year cycles, and a 4th century pillar stands untouched by time, while our modern infrastructure crumbles around it. Either the metallurgical knowledge required to produce self-protecting iron was possessed by civilizations we've been taught to consider primitive, or that knowledge came from somewhere and something that our official history has no category for. There is no third option. The iron in those buried streets shares characteristics with the Delhi pillar. Same family, same impossible durability, separated by continents and centuries, but connected by a metallurgical signature that modern science cannot replicate on demand. Remember this connection. We open this loop in Part 2, 160,000 tons of metal with no production records. Now we know something stranger still. It may have been metal that no documented 19th century process could actually produce. The factories are missing, the documents are missing, and now the science doesn't add up either. And here we approach the fact that doesn't fit in the head at all. The iron streets are one thing, unusual, expensive, undocumented, but at least we can construct a conventional explanation, however strained, about road durability or experimental engineering. What we cannot explain conventionally is what researchers find inside the buildings. Walk into the Church of the Savior on Spilled Blood in St. Petersburg, completed 1907. Look down, the floor, ornate, vast, covering 7,000 square meters, is Italian marble mosaic. Beautiful, expected. But now look at the structural elements surrounding it, the staircases, the load-bearing platforms, the subfloor frameworks exposed during the 2000 restoration, cast iron everywhere, structural cast iron used not where stone or brick would serve equally well, but specifically, deliberately, in configurations that maximize surface contact with the ground and walls simultaneously. Who designs a church floor system to maximize metal-to-ground contact? We're told this was purely aesthetic and structural. Victorian engineers loved cast iron. It was fashionable, practical, sounds reasonable until you visit church after church across Russia, Belgium, England, and France, and find the same pattern repeating with the same logic. It's not decoration. Decoration varies. This doesn't vary. This is standardized. St. Eugene's Basilica in Paris, 1855. Cast iron columns and framework throughout. St. Michael's Church in Hamburg, 1762, rebuilt 1906. Iron structural elements integrated into the floor and foundation systems. The Anglican Cathedral in Liverpool, construction began 1904. Iron substructure of extraordinary complexity beneath the stone surface. Now let's apply logic like a scalpel. A church needs walls, a roof, and a floor. Stone provides all three more cheaply than iron. Wood provides warmth. Brick provides simplicity. Every material choice away from iron saves money and labor. Yet someone consistently chose iron across denominations, across countries, across decades. Either every architect of every major church in the late 19th and early 20th century independently fell in love with the same expensive, cold, unnecessary material for purely aesthetic reasons, or the iron was serving a function that had nothing to do with aesthetics. There is no third option. The function was not decorative. The function was not structural in any conventional sense. The iron in these buildings was connected physically, materially out to the iron in the streets outside. One continuous metal network, streets to foundations to floors, a system, not a style choice. And here we open a question that this entire investigation has been building toward. What does a continent-wide metal network actually do? We'll return to this. But first, understand what it would have taken to build it, because the production numbers will make your understanding of the 19th century collapse entirely. Let's return to the network. Streets, foundations, church floors, all iron, all connected, all undocumented. Now ask the question that official history refuses to ask. What does a continent-wide conductive metal network actually do physically in the real world? Take Nikola Tesla, not the car brand, the man. In 1899, in Colorado Springs, Tesla transmitted electrical power wirelessly through the ground itself, illuminating 200 light bulbs from a distance of 40 kilometers. No cables, no wires. The Earth conducted the current. He documented it. His notes survive. The date is not disputed. 1899, the same year stamped on those buried iron lattices. That is not a coincidence. That is a timestamp. Tesla's entire theoretical framework rested on one principle. The Earth is a conductor, and if you build the right interface between human infrastructure and the ground, you can transmit energy freely to anyone connected to that interface. Now look at what we've found. Iron streets, maximum ground contact across entire city surfaces. Iron church floors, maximum ground contact inside gathering spaces. Iron structural frameworks connecting street level to building foundations continuously. This is not a road system. This is a receiver network. We're told Tesla was an eccentric visionary whose wireless energy ideas were impractical and commercially unviable, which is why J.P. Morgan famously withdrew funding from his Wardenclyffe Tower project in 1903. The official story? The technology didn't work at scale. Do you seriously believe that? Morgan withdrew funding the moment Tesla explained the system would deliver energy freely to anyone with a receiver, not because it failed. Because it succeeded. Free energy cannot be metered. Unmetered energy cannot generate profit. And profit, not physics, determines what technologies survive. It's like a water company discovering a method to pull clean drinking water from the atmosphere for zero cost and immediately classifying the research. The technology works perfectly. That's precisely why it disappears. Either Tesla's ground conduction energy system was genuinely impractical and the iron networks across European cities are an extraordinary coincidence of timing and design, or the network was already operational. Tesla was documenting existing principles, and the shutdown of Wardenclyffe in 1917 was the final act of dismantling a system already being buried street by street. There is no third option, and the dates align too perfectly for comfort. 1899, iron streets installed. 1899, Tesla demonstrates ground transmission. 1903, Morgan pulls funding. 1917, Wardenclyffe demolished. 1920s onward, asphalt covers the iron network city by city. The sequence is not random. Sequences never are. But here is what makes this thought genuinely cold. If the network existed, someone chose to destroy it, deliberately, globally, and replace it with something that could be controlled, metered, and sold back to us. Who benefits from that? We'll get there. But first, the production numbers that make this scale of operation impossible to explain. The production numbers promised. Let's deliver them. The largest iron foundry in Britain in 1890 was the Cyclops Works in Sheffield. Peak capacity, approximately 50,000 tons of finished iron product per year. This was considered extraordinary, the pride of Victorian industry, featured in newspapers, celebrated at exhibitions. One foundry, 50,000 tons, maximum capacity. We established that the iron street network across European cities required a conservative 160,000 tons of finished, precision-formed metal. That's 3 full years of Sheffield's entire output. every ingot, every casting, every product dedicated exclusively to street lattices. Nothing else. No bridges, no ships, no railway components, no building frameworks, just streets. For 3 years from the single largest foundry on the continent. Do you seriously believe that happened without one journalist noticing? Britain had approximately 30 major foundries operating in 1890. Combined realistic output, perhaps 400,000 tons annually across all iron products. To produce 160,000 tons of specialized street lattice on top of normal industrial demand would have consumed 40% of Britain's entire iron industry for a full year. And that's just Britain's streets. We're talking about Paris, Brussels, St. Petersburg, Chicago. The math doesn't produce an answer. It produces an impossibility. It's like discovering that medieval Florence, with its population of 90,000 people and hand tool workshops, somehow manufactured every component of the modern iPhone supply chain simultaneously, while also building cathedrals and fighting wars. The output requires infrastructure that simply did not exist. We're told Victorian industry was booming, and it was. We have the records. Railway construction consumed iron voraciously. Britain alone laid 8,000 kilometers of new track between 1880 and 1900, requiring roughly 5 million tons of iron. Shipbuilding, artillery, steam engines, the documented demand already consumed documented supply. There was no surplus, there was no capacity, there was no room. Either an entirely separate, undocumented industrial infrastructure existed in the 19th century, foundries, transport networks, labor forces operating completely outside the recorded economy, or the metal was not produced by 19th century industry at all. There is no third option. The buildings exist, the streets existed, the production base for them in any documented form does not exist. This is not a gap in the records, this is a chasm. We see documented railways, we see documented shipyards, we see documented armaments factories. We see zero, nothing, for the infrastructure that produced 160,000 tons of precision iron street lattice across a continent. The scariest part isn't the missing factories. It's what their absence tells us about who was actually running this world in the 19th century and why they needed that network operational so urgently that they built it without leaving a single trace. Now the loops close, all of them, simultaneously. We began with a single buried iron lattice beneath a European street dated 1899. Functional, undocumented. We called it an anomaly. Then we found 40 cities with the same anomaly. Then we found the documents don't exist. Then we found the production capacity doesn't exist. Then we found the metal itself shouldn't exist. Not with those corrosion properties, not from that era. One anomaly is a curiosity. 5 anomalies are a pattern. Every anomaly pointing the same direction is a system. This is a system. Look at the geographic distribution of confirmed iron street discoveries on a map. London, Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, St. Petersburg, Warsaw, Chicago. Not randomly scattered, concentrated in the major commercial and administrative capitals of the late 19th century, the cities that controlled global finance, global trade, global political decisions, not provincial towns, not rural areas, the nerve centers. Ask yourself, who builds a continental energy network? You build it where power already concentrates. You build it where the people who matter live and work and gather. You build it in the command centers and you connect those command centers to each other. This is exactly what we see, precisely, without exception. Now close the second loop, the metallurgical signature from part 5. The Delhi pillar's self-protecting iron composition. The buried European lattices showing identical resistance to corrosion across identical timescales, separated by continents, separated by centuries, sharing a material fingerprint that modern metallurgy cannot fully replicate. This means only one thing. The knowledge that produced both objects came from the same source, not the same culture, not the same century, the same underlying technical tradition, a tradition that predates both 415 AD and 1899, a tradition we have no official name for. It's like finding identical circuit board architecture in a Roman artifact and a Victorian machine. The components look different, but the logic is identical. Someone taught both, or both inherited from the same teacher. Do you feel the ground shifting beneath this investigation? We're told history is a straight line, of primitive to advanced, ignorant to enlightened, darkness to our glorious present. We're taught this so completely that the alternative feels absurd, but the evidence doesn't produce a straight line. It produces a circle, a highly advanced civilization, its network dismantled, its documents erased, its metal buried, its very existence paved over with asphalt and official silence. We are not the pinnacle. We may be the recovery. And if that's true, if an advanced civilization existed, operated, and was deliberately erased, then someone did the erasing, intentionally, globally, with extraordinary coordination. Who has that power? We're almost there. One more piece of the picture remains. One piece remains. The most important one. We know the network existed. We know it was dismantled. We know the timing. 1903 to the 1920s, precisely the window when metered electrical infrastructure replaced whatever came before. We know the documents were purged. We know the production base was invisible. Now ask the question every investigator must eventually ask. Who benefits? Take 1882. Thomas Edison opens the Pearl Street Station in Manhattan, the world's first commercial electrical power plant. It services 59 customers within a 1-mile radius. Each customer pays per unit of electricity consumed. The meter is invented simultaneously with the power grid. That is not a coincidence. That is a business model. From day one, centralized electrical power was designed not to illuminate homes, but to create dependency. To transform a natural resource, freely transmissible through the earth, as Tesla would demonstrate 17 years later, into a commodity with a price tag attached to every joule. Follow the money across a single decade. Between 1890 and 1900, J.P. Morgan invested approximately $27 million, equivalent to roughly $900 million today, into Edison's electrical companies. By 1892, Morgan had consolidated Edison's operations into General Electric. By 1903, Morgan had withdrawn funding from Tesla's Wardenclyffe project. Same man, same decade, funded the metered system, strangled the free system. Do you seriously believe that's coincidental? We're told Morgan lost faith in Tesla's technical vision. We're told Wardenclyffe was financially unviable. Historians present this as a sad story of a misunderstood genius. Charming. Except Morgan himself explained his reasoning with unusual candor. He asked Tesla directly, quote, _4, Tesla had no answer because the system had no meter. That was the point. Either Morgan withdrew funding because wireless ground transmission energy was genuinely impossible, or he withdrew it because it was genuinely possible. And a world with free, unmetered energy is a world where J.P. Morgan's $27 million investment becomes worthless overnight. There is no third option. We pay electricity bills today because someone in 1903 made a business decision, not a scientific one, a financial one. And to protect that decision, a continental metal network was buried, its documents erased, its very existence removed from the history we were taught. This thought should make you cold, not metaphorically, physically cold. Every electricity bill you have ever paid, every power outage you endured, every developing nation kept in poverty by unaffordable energy infrastructure, all of it traces back to one decade, one decision, one man asking one question about one meter. The network was real, the suppression was deliberate, and we are still paying for it, literally, every single month. But there is one final question this investigation must answer, and it changes everything. The final question, the one that reframes every number we've examined. If the network was dismantled, not abandoned, not forgotten, but actively dismantled, what did that operation actually cost? Let's calculate. Not the iron network's construction cost, the cost of its destruction. Removing 160,000 tons of iron lattice from city streets across 2 continents requires labor, transport, and either smelting infrastructure or burial logistics. Conservative estimate, removing and transporting 1 ton of embedded iron street material costs 3 times more than installing it. The iron is set, compacted, structurally integrated. You're not lifting new material, you're excavating it. 3 times the installation cost. Installation cost for 160,000 tons of precision iron, even at 1900 prices, exceeded 40 million British pounds. Removal cost, conservatively, 120 million pounds. In today's currency, approximately $15 billion. $15 billion spent to destroy infrastructure, not to build, to erase. Who authorizes a $15 billion erasure operation across 5 countries simultaneously? What government, what institution, what coordinated financial power executes a continental demolition project and leaves 0 documentation of the decision? The answer is obvious, and it should make your hair stand up. Now look at what replaced the network. Between 1900 and 1930, centralized electrical grids expanded across every major European and American city. The investment figures are documented, unlike the iron streets, because metered infrastructure generates returns that require accounting. Total capital investment in Western electrical grid infrastructure between 1900 and 1930, approximately $8 billion at period value. Less than the cost of destroying the previous system? It's like demolishing a fully functional skyscraper, paying more to tear it down than it cost to build, and then constructing a smaller, inferior building on the same site, but this time with a toll booth at every door. The logic is not engineering, the logic is control. Either the transition from the iron network to metered electrical grids was a natural technological evolution driven by genuine progress, or it was a forced replacement, a deliberate downgrade wrapped in the language of advancement, executed at enormous cost to transform a free resource into a revenue stream. There is no third option. We didn't advance from primitive to modern. We were moved, deliberately, expensively, without our knowledge or consent, from free to dependent. Every infrastructure decision since 1903 has been made within a system designed not for human benefit, but for human dependency. We inherited that dependency. We pay it monthly. We call it progress. The iron is still down there, beneath the asphalt, beneath the official story, intact, uncorroded, waiting, and now... You know what it was for? Go back to the beginning. Municipal workers, a European street, asphalt peeled back, iron lattice underneath, dated 1899, perfect and uncorroded. You saw that image at the start of this investigation. You saw a curiosity, an anomaly, a strange choice by some forgotten engineer. You see something entirely different now. You see the surface of a continental energy network deliberately buried. You see a material that shouldn't exist by 19th century metallurgical standards. You see the physical remnant of a system that gave way, not through obsolescence, not through failure, but through a $15 billion erasure operation coordinated across 5 countries with 0 documentation. You see what they needed you to never see. We were told history moves forward, primitive to advanced, darkness to light. We were taught this so completely, so early, so repeatedly, that the alternative feels like madness. But we've done the math together, and the math doesn't produce progress, it produces a cover-up. Either everything we've examined or the missing documents, the impossible metal, the undocumentable production volumes, the Tesla timeline, the Morgan decision, the coordinated burial, is the most extraordinary series of coincidences in recorded history. Or it is a system, designed, executed, maintained. The answer is obvious. We are not at the pinnacle of human achievement. We are living inside the aftermath of its deliberate destruction, paying monthly for access to something our predecessors accessed freely, calling our dependency modern life. Next time you walk down a city street, look at the asphalt beneath your feet. Somewhere under there, say in London, in Paris, in cities you've walked through your entire life, the iron is still waiting, intact, patient, uncorroded. It outlasted the people who buried it. It will outlast the official story that justified the burial, and now it has outlasted your ignorance of it too. We are waking up, not quickly enough, not loudly enough, But the questions are spreading faster than the asphalt can cover them. Every person who watches this, who checks the archives themselves, who asks their city council what lies beneath their streets, is one more crack in the official surface. They buried the network. They cannot bury the questions. Share this investigation with one person who still believes the official version of history, not to convince them, just to plant the question. Questions, once planted, are remarkably hard to pave over. Subscribe, because this investigation is not finished. What we found beneath the streets of Europe is only the beginning. What we found beneath the official history of the 20th century, that investigation starts next, and it goes